Hello and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Desai. Today I'll be talking about Season 5, Episode 1, The Mango. Hello everyone, I'm back, baby. Yes, I'm doing the George Babies now. I'm super excited to be back. I took a couple of weeks off to just kind of decompress those last weeks of summer. I just wanted to be without the sort of burden of the podcast deadlines the last few weeks of summer, and so that I could just do some fun things with my kids. And that's what we ended up doing. Nothing too elaborate, a putt-putt here and there, going to the pool, shopping around the mall, just having movie days, just fun stuff like that, which was glorious. And we had so much fun. They are both back in school now, my daughter in 7th grade, my son in 4th, and they had that typical kind of mixed feelings about going to school, excited about certain things and not excited about other things, but they're handling it super well. I do have to say, my kids are so chill. They're not high maintenance kids. So even when they are home for the summer, it's not like they're constantly bothering me or in my face. In fact, they're really independent and kind of do their own thing for the most part. But as their mother, I have to monitor all the iPad time and how much time they're just kind of zoning out with Roblox. Any of you parents out there, or maybe adults who play it, Roblox is the thing. And I always screw it up too, because you have to buy Robux to spend in Roblox. Robux is the currency, and my kids always make fun of me because I'm like, oh, do you need more Roblox? And I mix it up and I do the thing that my parents used to do and I made fun of them for, and wow, we've come full circle. So yeah, kids are back to school. It's I'm getting into that routine too. It's amazing how every time they start school, I forget everything. I'm like, wait, what? Lunches? What do you guys like in your lunch? Like I have to relearn everything as well, which is a little bit alarming. And I try not to think too much about how much I forget over the summer. Other than that, some sad news. Another death in the Seinfeld family. Actress Denise Dowse passed away. Now, Denise played Joe Temple's wife, Mrs. Temple. I don't know if we got her first name, but she was the wife of the man who rented Breakfast at Tiffany's and whose apartment George basically barreled his way into to watch the movie. I always like her. I know her best as Mrs. Teasley from 90210, the vice principal at West Beverly High. And she's always great. I've always enjoyed her as an actress. She, of course, did way more than both Seinfeld and 90210, but a really accomplished actress. And it sounded like a really sad situation. She fell ill pretty suddenly and died pretty suddenly. So we certainly send our good wishes to her and her family. Again, I say it's just me. But maybe I'm speaking for you too. I think you as a listener probably wish the same, because I have a feeling you are all amazing people. So yeah, the death of Denise Dowse, really sad. And well, I couldn't help but think about what contributor Greg pointed out to me about how many deaths there have been in the Seinfeld family since I've started this podcast. Is this another casualty of the Hot and Heavy, the Elaine podcast curse? I hope not. This is not my intention. I don't want this to be a cursed podcast. I just wanted to celebrate Elaine Bennis, But I couldn't help but think about that. Thanks a lot, Greg, for putting that in my head. Every time anyone from Seinfeld dies, no matter how old or how, I don't know. I mean, Denise Dowse was a little sudden, so it makes you think. Anyway, so that's just been in my head too. So I'm thinking and hoping that there's not a curse from my podcast. I don't really believe in curses. Or do I? Anyway, other than that, getting the fall feels, sweater weather, whatever you want to call it. I love the transition from summer to fall. Just the pumpkins and all the leaves and I just love everything about it. I'm ready for Halloween decorations. I'm not going to put them up just yet. I will refrain until, I try to refrain until October 1st to put up those Halloween decorations. You got to be solidly in the month, but I don't know. I'm just I'm really anxious to get into just the fall feels, everything about fall. I just love it. All right, enough about my fall feels and into this episode. I'm so excited to start season 5. We are entering into like the cream of the crop Seinfeld episodes. I mean, so many amazing Elaine moments are coming up. I just couldn't be more excited. It's just going to be gravy from here on out. I mean, such great episodes. I'm sure, there's a dud here and there, but for the most part, we are getting into the good stuff. Okay, the synopsis for The Mango is as follows. Jerry has to buy fruit for Kramer after the latter's complaints get him banned from Joe's fruit stand. Elaine admits she faked every orgasm with Jerry, leading Jerry to insist on one more chance to satisfy her. George's performance anxiety in bed is cured after he eats some mango slices. This episode was written by Lawrence H. Levy, and Larry David. All right, so we start out the episode in Monks. George is telling Jerry about his new girlfriend, Karen. He thinks he likes her, but he can't tell anymore. And Jerry asks a series of questions to sort of get to the bottom of it and asks how he prepares for her to come over. And once he reveals that he does scrub the tub when she comes over, Jerry says, then you're definitely in love. Tub is love. George says there is one problem, though. Sexual? Yeah. Basically, he isn't very confident about performing oral sex. Now, I didn't get this at all when I watched this at the age of 13 or 14, however old I was. But now I totally get it. When they say below the equator, I believe they're talking about George going down on Karen. And he talks about how the last time he got the tap. The tap. You're going along, you think everything's okay, and then he felt sort of a tap on his shoulder like, all right, buddy, you're done. Ooh, the tap is tough. And Jerry sort of commiserates with George. It's a hazy mystery down there. George says he thinks everything else is okay, unless, of course, she's faking. Elaine arrives just to hear that last part, and she says, who's faking? Faking what? Orgasms. She's not faking. And George says, look, he can tell if she's faking, and she's not faking. And asks Elaine, why, have you ever faked it? Of course. And he can't believe it. You faked it? And she says, on occasion, yeah. Well, how can the guy not know? Because she's good. And then Jerry cracks a joke about the guy drinking so many beers. He's probably groggy anyway. Elaine laughs at that and claps back with, you didn't know. Ooh, record scratch. Jerry asks, what? You didn't know. Well, it turns out Elaine faked every single orgasm with Jerry, and he is shocked and kind of considers, well, maybe they've all been faking. Elaine says, no, look, I just didn't have them back then, and I'm sure they're not all faking. And of course, this gets George thinking that maybe Karen is faking. My take on this scene, I mean, what an incredible scene to start the season. It's so strong in so many ways. You can't get more Seinfeld than equating cleaning a tub with really being in love with a girl. I mean, two things that, for all intents and purposes, shouldn't have anything to do with each other, but leave it to Seinfeld, leave it to Larry David to connect it and have it be the determining factor of how you feel about something. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. Jerry and George's conversation at the top is so genius, but of course I want to focus on when Elaine enters. I love that she figures out what George is talking about right away. It takes her like 2 questions and she knows it, and how excited she is. The orgasms. She's so excited to discuss. The whole lead up to Elaine's reveal about faking every orgasm with Jerry, it's so well done. I love that her reveal of it was in response to him making a crack at her, that men have to be so drunk to sleep with her. And look, I know it's a joke. I know this, but isn't this sort of a self-own too of Jerry? I mean, you slept with her, Jerry. I know I'm interpreting this too much, but I just love whenever Jerry makes a crack about stuff like that. It's like you're making fun of yourself. And that's pointed out in a later episode when Jerry talks about Elaine's boyfriends and he says, who are any of her losers? And George says, you're on that list. I love that. I love when it's pointed out to Jerry, like, what are you doing? You're totally self-owning there. And I just have to point this out because it was so blatant that I can't even believe he said it. But real life Jerry Seinfeld self-owned himself in an episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. I can't even remember who the guest was, but he was making reference to when he performed at a White House event. And at this event, Paul McCartney was in the audience and he could see him from the stage. And he made a crack at Paul McCartney about his lyric, "She was just 17. You know what I mean." Sorry if I'm butchering that for any Beatles fans, but you know that lyric. And so Jerry's relaying this story that like on the fly, he saw, Paul McCartney and he made this little joke to make fun of him. It's like, "Yeah, I think we do know what you mean. And that's not good, Paul. And I believe there are some police officers waiting outside for you. Blah, blah, blah. What's the deal?" You're welcome for my stellar Jerry Seinfeld impression. But hello, Jerry, you dated a 17-year-old in real life. It was super fucking creepy. So why the hell are you publicly outing Paul McCartney for a song lyric when he probably wrote it when he was like in his early 20s? He wasn't in his late 30s dating a high school student. So what the fuck? So super weird and just a real life self-own that I wanted to point out. Okay, back to Elaine in this scene. Sorry for the tangent. I just love everything about this scene and JLD's performance. You can't get much better than the fake, 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 fake. And that whole sense of pride she shows is so hilarious after he says the whole thing, the whole production, and the way she says, "Not bad, huh?" I mean, it's like, yeah, it sucks she wasn't getting orgasms at that time. Like she didn't have them, but hey, I mean, she perfected this performance and she's pretty damn proud of that. I love that. I love that that's part of JLD's interpretation in her performance. Another great thing about JLD's performance is just seeing how clearly amused Elaine is by taking Jerry down a couple of notches. Even within her kind of enjoying taking Jerry down, there's a little bit of compassion there. So it's a little bit of a mixed message thing here happening. But JLD, of course, performs it so well. I think that's written really well, where it's like, "Hey, I'm going to rip on you, but I don't want you to like be so neurotic about this because I just didn't have him back then. It wasn't you." And I just want to take a moment and say, I'm so glad that they had that little line about how she didn't have him back then. It's totally said in passing, but it's another kind of clue into female sexuality. I mean, it can take a bit before a woman can climax during sex. I mean, that's just very common. And this is a huge discussion. I think a lot of you ladies out there might have had this discussion with your friends, your girlfriends, when we have our like girl talk sessions. I know I have had that discussion many times, and there's always the women who can climax during sex and who can never climax during sex. And it's always like, wait, you can't? Wait, you can? It's always like this back and forth. And then advice, tips are given on maybe how to do it. But anyway, I just like that they included this because it was yet another thing that wasn't talked about, especially in a network sitcom. We don't tackle things like that, especially back then. So I just really have an appreciation that, hey, you know what? Maybe some people didn't realize that sometimes women just don't have orgasms. And it's just because maybe physically they weren't able to for a certain time. From what Elaine says, it sounds like she has since figured it out. So I think that's good for Elaine, Elaine, you get yours. And then the end of this scene is done really well. Of course, this conversation would send George into a cloud of anxiety in regards to his girlfriend, Karen. All right, moving on. We are in Jerry's apartment. Of course, Jerry is just stewing about this newfound revelation that Elaine never had any orgasms with him. He's talking to Kramer about it. So she faked them all. Kramer says, "So what?" And Jerry's like, "What? She had an orgasm under false pretenses." And Kramer comments, "I could hear her screaming from my apartment. She woke me up a few times." I love that visual. I mean, it probably wouldn't have fit in the episode, but I would have almost loved to see a flashback of that. Just Kramer waking up really over the top, waking up and kind of sitting up in bed and hearing Elaine in the background. I just love that visual. I think that would have been hilarious. And Jerry compares her to Meryl Streep. She really did convince him. And Jerry has a moment too where he's like, gosh, if she would have just told me, I could have done something about it. Kramer says, yeah, I could have helped you out. I know how to press those buttons. Jerry's just feeling super inadequate. He's supposed to see her later, doesn't really want to. And then Elaine calls. Jerry sort of has an attitude when he hears her voice. Oh, hello, Elaine. She asks about dinner that night, and he says, I don't know, I'm not in the mood. He's trying to get out of it. And she can sense something's wrong. Are you still upset about what happened this afternoon? He kind of admits, yeah. And she says, come on, Jerry, you're making too big of a deal out of it. All right, so he agrees to meet her at 7:30 at that place. I love just how vague that is. And then they get off the phone, and we continue in Elaine's office where Elaine sees her coworker, Renee, walk by. She stops her and asks, have you ever, faked it? Renee doesn't miss a beat, and she says, yeah, sometimes. Really, like when? If we went to a Broadway show, had really good seats. Elaine's like, yeah, well, of course. Renee says, well, if it's enough already, I just want to get some sleep. The actress who plays Renee is Verilyn Jones, and she has guest starred in all of the big shows in the 90s pretty much and still acts to this day. Most recently, she was in Queen Latifah's series, The Equalizer. And she will appear a couple of more times in Seinfeld as Elaine's friend, Elaine's coworker. And I love her. This is one of those instances where it's a total small guest starring role, but she gets all the funny and she nails it. She crushes it. So I think she's so fun and I really enjoy her performance. So back at Jerry's place, Kramer admits that he faked it. Of course, this is very confusing to Jerry. What? Why would you fake it? And then we get an immediate callback almost to what Renee just said. Well, if it's enough already and I just want to get some sleep. Then Kramer starts reacting grossed out by a peach that he just bit into. It's a terrible peach and he's going to go return it. It's subpar. My take on this scene, back to just Kramer revealing that he had heard Elaine faking it. What kind of production was this that Elaine put on? I mean, she really, really put a lot into this. It's amazing. I just love that we keep getting a confirmation that this faking of orgasm that Elaine did was so elaborate and so convincing. I just think that's a great little tidbit into Elaine's history. When Elaine calls Jerry, I love that Jerry gives her that vibe, first of all, kind of a little bit of an attitude, and that she can tell something's bothering him right away. It's just another example of how close friends they are. I love these little windows into their relationship. It doesn't take much. She can just tell by the sound of his voice, what's wrong? That little aside scene between Elaine and Renee, her coworker, it's just gold. It's so fun. And I love that Renee is not even fazed by Elaine's question. Yeah, sometimes. I mean, it's not shocking, whatever. We're talking, I'm working, it's the middle of a work day. And now I'm talking about faking orgasms with a coworker. Totally, totally normal. That whole matter-of-fact tone of the conversation is what makes it so funny and so enjoyable. And that tone is with both of them. When Renee says, if we had really good seats, Elaine's like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's that just kind of, that tone of it is what really makes it so funny. Another fun writing moment is how Kramer repeats verbatim what Renee says to Elaine about the enough already, just want to get some sleep. It happens 20 seconds after Renee says it. So it's this rapid callback thing. And but it still works. It's still so funny. A callback doesn't have to happen at the end of the episode to something that happened mid or early episode. A 20-second callback, it's just as effective. All right, next we have a quick scene between Kramer and Joe at Joe's fruit stand. Well, in a nutshell, Kramer pisses off Joe by trying to return the peach, and then he gets banned. You're banned. Next, we're at a restaurant on George's date with Karen. Karen is eating some risotto, and it is fucking amazing, apparently. She is just overcome with pleasure to the point where she lights a cigarette after having her bite. George can't help but notice. He's just kind of watching this whole production. He asks if she's satisfied. She's very satisfied. And he says, well, if you weren't satisfied, I'm sure you'd say something. I probably would. But then again, I'm an enigma. The actress who plays Karen, she is the very recognizable Lisa Edelstein. She went on to have several guest starring roles on a lot of popular shows, and also starring in shows like House, The Kominsky Method, and A Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce. Now, she will come back for one more episode in The Masseuse. And I love her as Karen. I think she's awesome. She plays that indecipherable emotion really well where, where does she stand on George and his sexual prowess or lack thereof? It's hard to tell, and she does a really good job with that. I enjoy her. Back to the scene, George suggests that, instead of the movie, maybe they'll go back and, Oh, okay. Sorry, real quick. If a guy ever did that, talk about a vagina dryer. Gross. Like, why? Ugh. I just hate that kind of you're trying to turn someone on and that's the way you're going to do it. It's so gross. It's so unattractive. Anyway, I just had to mention that. And she says, maybe, which, to reiterate my point, is probably a reaction to how unattractive his little suggestive movement was. And George consents. She's not really committing to going back and, And he asks if everything's okay, in the bedroom. You're generally okay. Yeah, generally, she says. Do you feel the way you feel after the risotto? Well, no. I feel full after the risotto. Next, we're at a restaurant with Jerry and Elaine. Now, Elaine is having her dessert and really enjoying it. Such pleasure. I believe it's chocolate ice cream. She's making the noises, saying, "Oh, God," and moaning and exhaling after her bite. Elaine asks Jerry if he wants to go see that new Meryl Streep movie. He scoffs and is like, "Meryl Streep?" Elaine can't believe he doesn't like her. She's so authentic. There's no acting there. Jerry signals to get the check, and Elaine just keeps going on about actors. She just really admires them, It's such an incredible skill. Yeah, can we get off this? Jerry snaps at her. Elaine's like, "What's the matter?" "Nothing." Oh, she senses it right away. "You're not still thinking about that, are you?" "No." "Oh, good." He starts chuckling, and then Jerry blurts out that he wants another shot. He knows he can do it, just one more shot. Elaine's like, "What? No, we can't do that. Sex will kill the friendship." Jerry doesn't think so, but no, out of the question. Elaine says their friendship is too important to her. Jerry starts getting upset. He's thinking, you like having this over me. You don't want me to do it. And she says that is so ridiculous. "Come on, Elaine." "No." "Elaine." "No." My take on this scene, besides the obvious humor of this scene, Jerry and JLD's performance here is top notch. I have to give props to both. I am going to focus on how much I love and appreciate that this is such a unique conflict that only Jerry and Elaine could have. Even though they are in a totally platonic relationship at this point, this past between them allows for such a weird situation. There's this power struggle that is rooted in the fact that they were once a couple. The moment where Jerry says, "You like having this over me, you don't want me to do it," it's very telling. And I think maybe a little bit of a window in what their romantic relationship was like. Elaine thinks it's so amusing that this was what happened. She faked every orgasm. But for Jerry, it's so upsetting, and it could end their friendship. He won't be satisfied until he satisfies her. Yeah, I came up with that. And let's not forget, they broke up amicably because they couldn't be friends when they slept together. That was the thing. But Jerry cannot accept the fact that perhaps his inability to bring her to orgasm could have had something to do with it. I think he just thought, okay, the sexual chemistry really isn't there. It's probably just mutual. But, now that he has this new information, that amicability, if that's a word, I apologize if it's not, sort of doesn't, it messes with his head now. I don't think it's as amicable as he can accept now, because it's like, well, wait a second, maybe I was the reason, All right, back to the specifics of the scene, though. That opening of Elaine enjoying the dessert is so well done. JLD is so fantastic. It's just subtle. There's no like Meg Ryan diner scene and When Harry Met Sally. but it's this like believable indulgence in some chocolate ice cream. And JLD plays it just at the right level for it to be amplified for Jerry. You know, it's just such a genius choice. And no surprise, JLD made a genius choice. Now, even though this premise is a little bit absurd, Jerry asking for one more shot and all that stuff, it's somehow believable. The genius of Seinfeld is they make it believable. Like you're convinced like, oh, I do think that maybe she should give Jerry a shot so that they can reconcile this whole thing because clearly he's not getting over it. And then ending the scene with that very motherly kind of moment where Elaine tells Jerry no with her finger out. It's just so fun and such a great performance by both of them. Next, we are in Karen's bedroom. It's a post-coital moment between Karen and George. But I guess it's not really technically post-coital because George couldn't get a boner, apparently. He's distraught. He bursts out and says it's Jerry's fault. Jerry and Elaine, it made him nuts, all that talk about orgasm. Karen says, George, it's all right. You feel okay? Well, it's not like after the risotto. All right, next we're in Jerry's car. Jerry says goodnight to an angry Elaine. She's upset because they walked out on that movie. Oh, that Meryl Streep, she's such a phony baloney. Elaine opens the door, says, thanks for a real fabulous evening. Jerry asks if she's upset, and she says, yes, can't you tell? No, I can't. Maybe you're faking. Oh, Elaine is really sorry she told him that. Well, so is he. Elaine tells him to stop being such a baby. He accuses her of being a baby. My take, we're seeing this conflict just heightening between Jerry and Elaine. This is a very funny scene. You know Jerry is being immature here, but to end the scene with him retorting, "You're a baby!" when that comedic pitch, right? He's angry, but just as George said before, he cannot not be funny because it's that comedic pitch of his voice. And that's definitely what we're hearing here with "You're a baby." Next, we're at Jerry's apartment. George is upset, blaming Jerry and Elaine for his impotence the night before. And he hates his penis. Jerry tries to convince him that, you know what, this even happened to Houdini. Don't even worry about it. Kramer enters. He needs Jerry to get him fruit because he was banned from the store. Well, Jerry says, no, I'm not going to do that. You're just going to have to go to the supermarket. What? Kramer can't fathom that. They have mealy apples, dry oranges, and he doesn't know what's going on with the papayas. George storms out. Well, if Houdini couldn't do it, what chance do I have? Jerry gets a call from Patty Lawrence, an ex-girlfriend, and she had orgasms. So he calls Elaine to let her know about Patty Lawrence and that he has calls to 6 other women, and they will probably confirm orgasms too. So what does she have to say about that? And Elaine does exactly what I would do. She hangs up on him. Next, we're at Joe's fruit stand. Jerry has agreed to get Kramer's fruit for him. He doesn't know how to pick out an avocado. What do plums with red on the inside look on the outside? What the hell are plantains? He's not excited about this. Well, he starts shopping and Joe greets him. Jerry announces that he's getting fruit for the week. And then he, for whatever reason, starts narrating everything he's getting. And Joe catches on. This fruit isn't for you. That's Kramer. So Jerry gets banned from Joe's fruit stand. Next, we're at Jerry's apartment. Looks like George has been recruited as the fruit delivery man. Comes in with multiple heavy bags of fruit for Jerry and George. George says he has a date with Karen that night. He's not excited about it. Says he still has a soft ding-ding. Kramer enters. He just cut up one of the mangoes that George got him and says, whoa, these mangoes are delicious. Good job, George. Well, that reminds George he's not doing this again. Joe gave him the creeps. He asks for money to pay him back, and Jerry and Kramer don't have cash. Well, Kramer does, but he only has hundreds. Of course, George is annoyed, but then Kramer's like, hey, cheer you up with some mango here. Take a bite. So George takes a bite, and oh my gosh, he loves it. It's like a taste explosion. He takes another bite, and it, seems like it's having an effect on his dong. Oh my God, I think it moved, he said. He grabs a couple of the big pieces and leaves. I'm back, baby! I'm back! Elaine enters while Kramer is exiting. He offers her some of the mango, which she refuses. And Jerry sees her and says, well, if it isn't the First Lady of the American Theater. The whole reason for Elaine's visit is to return some of Jerry's things that were in her apartment. Well, he has some things of hers here. I know. I'll get them. I'm waiting. All right. Well, there's fins, poker chips, goggles, cards. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. And they exchange the bags. And Elaine says, well, I guess I'll see you around. She's about to leave and then hesitates. All right, let's go. I'll give you half an hour. Jerry can't believe it. But then she explains, look, we have to have sex to save the friendship. Jerry thinks about that. Sex to save the friendship. Well, if we have to, we have to. My take on this scene, I'm just going to focus on the Elaine portion. That icy vibe between Elaine and Jerry is very fun. I love that opener with Jerry, First Lady of the American Theater. It's so great. And that bickering back and forth like they're teenagers. It's almost sibling-like, which is funny. I have to say, I remember seeing this the first time around and sort of being really bummed. There's a little bit of a finality to it when Elaine's like, all right, well, see you around. And that twist of Elaine offering him this shot is so wonderful. I love that there's absolutely nothing sexy about it also. This is purely transactional. It's a necessity to save the friendship. And I love Elaine's line, Jerry, we have to have sex to save the friendship. And I love Jerry's line, if we have to, we have to, while he's untucking his shirt. Oh, it's so perfect. Next, we see George and Karen back in Karen's bed. And this time it is a post-coital moment because, woo, that mango worked. And it seems like George rocked Karen's world. She is basking in the pleasure she just felt. And George really doesn't believe it. It was quite a performance, quite a performance. He basically accuses her of faking her orgasm, and she's really offended, understandably, and throws him out, pushes him out of the bed, but he can't find his glasses. Get out. Get out. Next, we are in Jerry's bed. Jerry and Elaine are lying in bed, and Jerry, well, he couldn't perform this time. And Jerry's distraught, making noises because he's angry at his penis, and Elaine's just reading a magazine. He blames George. All that talk about impotence, it got to him. Elaine turns to Jerry and says, I'm a little hungry. And she's wondering if he has any of that mango left. Ooh, Jerry thinks about it, remembering George. Maybe that'll give him a boner. My take on this scene. First of all, I have to just mention how effortlessly sexy JLD looks in this bed with her hair down, her shoulders out. Come on, she's just so hot. I just have to mention that. Okay, and then I have to mention, and I'll fully admit, maybe I was too naive when I first watched this, but are we meant to believe that Jerry eats the mango and then has sex with Elaine to completion? I mean, I've been made to feel like a total idiot for not knowing that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts if you guys have thoughts about that. I didn't think that, but I guess it makes sense. I mean, their friendship is mended after this, so maybe that is what happens. He's like, hey, Kramer, give me some of that mango. And then he was in the bone zone and everything worked out. So I guess that is what we're supposed to think. This is a great ending to the episode, and it's all thanks to a mango. But it's really thanks to Kramer, if you think about it. If he didn't eat mango, Jerry and George may still have soft peepees. So thank you, Kramer, for saving the day. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will see you on the other side.
Honesty. It's one of the cornerstones of a good relationship. But unfortunately, your intimate partner could be lying to you on a regular basis. Hi, I'm Benji Moan, founding partner of Moan, Panton, and Cream, a law firm that specializes in sexual perjury. Did you know that 87% of women have faked an orgasm? 87%! Chances are you've been deceived by a gal who only went through the motions of a climax, but actually felt nothing. And don't think it can't happen with men as well. 91% of men have misrepresented their penis in order to lure someone into bed. The old cock and switch move. Sex fibbers come in all shapes and sizes, and often very different shapes and sizes than you were led to believe. Don't be a victim of sexual perjury. Getting laid shouldn't come with getting lied to. If you've been a victim of a sexual fabricator, call us, Moan, Panton, and Cream, at 555-FAKE-FAKE-FAKE-FAKE. That's 555-3253, 3253, 3253, 3253. And we will make sure you get into the pants of justice. Moan, Panton, and Cream. Sex, lies, and a lot of red tape.
And we're back. There was an inside look for this episode. JLD talked about how, again, it's just another thing that this sitcom took on, things that were never talked about, and how, once again, it was done in a very non-sexual way, and how she loved that. And it was just such a thrill to do these types of storylines because it was just, again, never done in these types of shows. There was commentary for this episode, and it was by JLD, Jason Alexander, and Michael Richards. And they talked about how this was the first episode to air in the Cheers old time slot. So if you remember from the last episode, that aired the same night as the Cheers series finale, which was a huge deal. So Seinfeld got that old time slot. So that was a big deal for the show to be taking over the time slot of the biggest sitcom that NBC, I believe, had it until that point. Was a big deal. So they talked about that. Once again, JLD just talks about how she couldn't get over the subject matter and that NBC allowed it. She also talked about how amazed she was that the male writers chose to explore female sexuality in the show in a very honest way. She was so impressed. And it's also in a way that doesn't paint the men in a very good light and that uses the female orgasm as this power play. So she points all that out in the commentary, and I couldn't say it better. I think that has to be mentioned and recognized because I think in a male-dominated writer's room, for them to write this type of an episode, super rare, very self-aware, and very self-deprecating for men to write this. So I just think not only giving this to an actress like JLD, which of course she can handle. I mean, I think that's another reason, like, hey, we know that this is going to be in good hands with our lead female actress, but also to have it portrayed as, wow, how insecure a man is about something like this. What a brave choice, and a choice that I'm so glad that they made. I do want to mention Jason Alexander in the commentary mentions how he really thought Jerry had a thing for Julia, not Elaine, Julia, and that it really worked for the show. And it was interesting. He sort of blurts that out, like, Julia, I think Jerry definitely had a crush on you. I mean, I think that's kind of uncomfortable to say, but JLD just kind of doesn't say anything in response to that. But when he says, but it really worked for their chemistry on the show, she says, yeah, I think, if he did, it worked for their characters. And that in these types of storylines where Jerry had to think of her sexually, he sort of got a bit shy and reserved. And JLD kind of admitted that, yeah, I did kind of notice he would get that way. That moment passes, but I think it was also really classy of her not to either confirm or deny that crush Jerry might have had on her. But I also think, like, are you trying to start shit, Jason Alexander? Why do you even have to mention that? All right, moving on to the notes about nothing. There was this quote from Elaine, which I thought was interesting, sort of JLD judging Elaine. She says, if you hear a man saying he's looking for an Elaine type woman, run in the opposite direction of that man. I am not kidding. Run. That man is a moron. I don't think she's made it cool to be single and neurotic. People don't look up to these characters. Of course, Seinfeld is funny, but beyond that, single viewers can say, that is bad. These people are not what I want to be. I will laugh at them. It's kind of like watching Jerry Springer. I think that's really interesting. And I've heard that before too, definitely, like, these are fun characters to watch, but they're not characters to aspire to. All right, next, let's move on to Contributor Corner. Greg sent in his thoughts this week, and he says, now that we're in the heart of what I consider the golden era of Seinfeld, the writing for Elaine has gotten better and better. While the character of George is basically Larry David, and Jerry, of course, is Jerry, Elaine took some time for the writers to figure out. Having an actress both as comedically gifted as JLD and as extremely likable as she is, it would have been a disservice to the Elaine character to have her not be an equal fourth in this crew. Right. As I was saying earlier, I mean, we're really entering into, I like what you say here, the golden era of Seinfeld. And a lot of that certainly has to do with them finding who Elaine is. And I'll put Kramer in there as well. You know, we know Kramer's quirky, but I think it took them a little bit to find this balance of quirky and grounded as well with Kramer. But with Elaine, I agree with what you're saying, Greg, and it's been confirmed by Larry David, Jerry Seinfeld, that the combination of what they knew JLD could pull off and what they wanted to convey with the character, it was just this natural progression into just the fabulous character of Elaine that we see now really blossoming, especially starting in season 5. Greg goes on to say, Elaine's best moment of this episode is when she delivers the line, "You didn't know," and everything that comes after in the diner. She's confident and proud of both her performance, but in a way, it sticks it to Jerry and his cockiness of being such a success in the bedroom. I also love how George is a giddy viewer to this conversation, as if he too enjoys seeing Jerry get taken down a peg. Right. I didn't mention the cuts to George and his reaction, but yeah, of course he's enjoying this as well. That's the dynamic of this friend crew. You know, there's an affection there, but I think there's also this kind of sick joy seeing any of them getting taken down a notch to several notches. It's an interesting dynamic. And I completely agree. Elaine brings this up only to take Jerry down. And I think we can all agree Jerry deserves it. He's a cocky son of a bitch. Next, Greg says, I do love how Elaine tries to make Jerry feel better as the episode progresses, even as they argue when he can't let it go. She really is a good friend, and of course, she doesn't want this dynamic to end. While part of me doesn't like that she ultimately gives in to Jerry's fragile ego and gives him another shot, I do like that it is transactional for her. Sex to save the friendship. This was very progressive for a sitcom at the time, as sex was always deemed so serious that love had to be attached, especially for the women. And what makes it great is it doesn't lead to anything in terms of dating, nor does it make things weird going forward. Yes, all of this, Greg, totally all of this. The transactional quality of it is what makes it work. This isn't titillating for the audience. It's not like anything like setting a mood for anything or a possibility for them getting back together. It's so devoid of that. And that's where the humor comes from. And that's, again, the genius of this show. Greg's next thought, I love the small but mighty performance of Elaine's coworker, Renee. This lady is so believable in explaining when she fakes it with her guy. I don't know why, but I always remember this part of the episode because it's rare that Elaine just talks to another female that she isn't in some kind of beef with, especially in the office. That's a good point. I already addressed how much I love this performance, and Renee is such a great character. But yes, that is such a great point. You know, we don't really see a lot of, pardon the term, girl-on-girl action with Elaine. Okay, I didn't have to say it like that. I apologize. But you know what I mean. Yes, we don't see a lot of female interaction with Elaine unless it is a beef, like with Gail and the shoes. So yeah, that is fun. And we see a little bit more of this as she, has more female friends. And we know that kind of goes by the wayside. But yeah, I do think that's why this is also really fun. Thank you so much, Greg. Okay, moving on, we have some thoughts from contributor Todd. Now, the mango is actually one of Todd's favorite episodes of Seinfeld. And this is what he had to say. He loves in the episode how everyone's involved. It's definitely some of the best writing of the entire series. And there are great subplots, including George and the risotto, and Kramer getting banned from the fruit stand after trying to return the bad peach. Man, Joe does not play around with his return policy, even though he stands by his fruit. Todd says he loves how this was another area of Seinfeld where they broke new ground. He says, I'm fairly certain orgasms in general, and more specifically female orgasms, was not a topic covered during network TV episodes of Leave It to Beaver, Gilligan's Island, or The Brady Bunch. I don't know, Todd. Maybe there was an episode, it just never aired. Gilligan's Island. Maybe the professor was trying to make a vibrator for the girls on the island. If anyone could, it would be the professor, right? He'd probably be able to devise something like that. But yes, of course, Todd, the groundbreaking nature of these types of storylines is what made Seinfeld so great. And this episode is no exception. Oh, Todd says, by the way, I've never understood why George was repeatedly ordering food during the back and forth between Jerry and Elaine. Maybe this was a precursor to him discovering that he had an unhealthy obsession combining food and sex and eventually TV. I think it's just he wants to divert. I don't know. I think it's weird too. I think it's like, well, we can't just have George not have any dialogue during this, but yeah, I'll have a chocolate malted here. Like, what? Yeah, maybe he just wants to distract himself from the awkwardness of the conversation. But part of me is like, well, no, I think he would just sort of revel in it as well. And finally, Todd's last couple of thoughts. He says, I wonder what the corresponding impact was to sales of mango, which was still kind of an exotic fruit back then, in the mid-90s. Don't forget the devastating impact on Merlot after the film Sideways, which included the famous Paul Giamatti line about refusing to drink any fucking Merlot. Wow, I know I saw that movie, but I don't remember that. But that's hilarious. Wow, who knew that Paul Giamatti could have such an impact? That's not fair. He's a great actor. And this was because, Todd says, people used to seriously alter their diets based on pop culture fads in the 90s. Very, very true. Yeah, that would be an interesting fact. Nothing was mentioned in the notes about nothing, but yeah, did impotent men suddenly run to the grocery store and get mango? I'm telling you, if they had no experience with mango, they all could not cut it properly because have you ever tried to cut a mango? It is hard. The pit of the mango is almost as big as the mango itself. I'm just saying, my mom can do it like an expert, but I have tried to cut mango myself and I just ended up with a gooey, pulpy mess and it was disgusting. Oh, thank you so much, Todd and Greg, for your thoughts this week. If you would like to become a contributor to Hot and Heavy, please email me at elainepodcast@gmail.com. That's elainepodcast@gmail.com. Your contribution could be one sentence. It could be a couple of pages in an email. It could just be a picture of a thumbs up, a thumbs down, whatever it is, I want it. So please email me if you are interested in contributing to an episode, and your thoughts could be included in a future Hot and Heavy. All right, my favorite Elaine moments. It's pretty much the whole episode, but I will narrow it down. I love that you didn't know. What's that? You didn't know. She does this little kind of little tilt of the head afterwards, like, oops. Love that. Of course, I love fake. I love her eating that ice cream with that very subtle orgasmic performance. Again, not over the top, but just enough to know what's going on. And then finally, I love the, all right, let's go. I'll give you half an hour. It's that blow line where everyone freaks out. And so it's really effective. And my final notes. I have to say, this is a near perfect episode, and it's such a fantastic way to launch this season, which is just full of stellar Seinfeld episodes, classic, iconic episodes that I cannot wait to get into. I love how this story between Elaine and Jerry, it's pretty realistic in its absurdity. This could very well come out for an ex-couple. This kind of conflict, I think, is really believable. And it could be a detrimental sticking point. JLD's performance, of course, is so strong, but I have to also give props to Jerry Seinfeld. His performance in this episode is so great. And Elaine is sort of the straight performer to Jerry Seinfeld's kind of childish performance. You know, he sort of has to be really distraught, but in this childish type of way. And so Elaine has to play off of that in the straight man or whatever you want, a straight woman, straight person character. And it's really effective. They have a great partnership and performance in this episode. So I really have to give Jerry Seinfeld a little round of applause for his performance in this episode too, because without his performance, you wouldn't get the great performance from JLD. And yeah, just a great partnership, great plot line for the two of them. And like I said, a very unique situation that could only happen happen between the two of them, these two characters. So how fun is that to play with? I love that. And if you've listened to this podcast, I hate the whole Jerry and Elaine as a couple thing. I almost don't even like when it's mentioned. But this is a great example of utilizing a past romance between the two of them for some really strong comedic moments that could very well happen after the fact of being a couple. So great job, Larry David and Lawrence H. Levy, however you say it. Again, near perfect episode. I really enjoyed it. And I think that's all I can say about the mango. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.